They will tell you the world is fair, that hard work alone brings reward, that virtue, kindness, humility, these are the keys to success. But step into the real world, and the mask shatters, because in reality, the weak get stepped on, the naive get used, the polite get overlooked, and those who wait for permission never get chosen. Power does not care about your good intentions. It respects one thing: command. And most people never learn to command. They wander through life reacting, not designing. They hand over control to bosses, to lovers, to fear, to comfort, to whatever voice outside them speaks the loudest. They follow rules written by people more strategic than they are. And when life doesn't give them what they want, they call it fate, not realizing it was their own passivity that wrote the script. Let me make this painfully clear. The world doesn't reward the most deserving. It rewards the most deliberate. Power isn't found. It's built. It's taken. It's engineered. And those who rise, those who dominate, don't stumble into it. They become it. But to become power, you must first understand why most people never even come close. It starts with the disease of distraction. We live in an age where people drown in stimulation but starve for meaning. The average mind jumps from notification to impulse, from social validation to emotional reaction, never sitting still long enough to think, let alone strategize. You can't build power in chaos. You need focus, and that kind of focus is a rebellion, a revolt against noise, a war against weakness, and most people don't have the stomach for it. They confuse motion with progress, busy with things that don't matter, consumed by opinions that don't serve them. They scroll, compare, judge, react, repeat, never asking the deeper questions. What do I want to become? What will I sacrifice? What game am I even playing? This is why they stay small. Because most people don't live with strategy. They live with emotion. They make decisions in reaction to pain, desire, or insecurity. They want freedom, but refuse the discipline it demands. They want power, but fear the solitude that comes with it. And so they stay trapped, not by others, but by themselves. Look around. The people with real influence, real impact, they operate on a different code. They move with intent. They speak with purpose. They act without seeking validation. Why? Because they've done the one thing most people avoid. They've taken responsibility for their inner world. They've silenced the noise, confronted their flaws, and chosen clarity over comfort. If you want to rise above the masses, you must do the same. Not by imitating, but by understanding. Understand the games being played around you and within you. This is not about cruelty. It's about awareness. When Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't glorifying tyranny, he was exposing the rules of power. When Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War, he wasn't calling for bloodshed, he was teaching how to win without fighting. And when Robert Greene penned the 48 Laws, he wasn't preaching manipulation, he was showing you how the world really works. To stay powerless is to stay blind. But to rise, you must learn to see everything. Power begins in the mind, in how you interpret resistance, in how you handle rejection, in how you respond to disrespect, and most importantly, in how you see yourself. Because the greatest war is internal. Until you control your mind, the world will control you. Until you learn to detach from emotion, influence will always belong to someone else. Until you confront your own fears, you will follow those who pretend not to have them. So I'll tell you the hard truth. If your emotions own you, so will other people. Emotional discipline is not suppression. It's conversion. Turn rage into action. Turn heartbreak into clarity. Turn fear into precision. Look at Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, yet a stoic. His power wasn't in his army, it was in his mind. He understood, if you cannot rule yourself, you have no right to rule anything else. Power demands internal order, and most people live in internal chaos. They've never structured their beliefs. They've never confronted their trauma. They've never disciplined their impulses. They react like children and wonder why life treats them like pawns. You must become the opposite. Cold, but not cruel. Calculated, but not heartless. Deliberate, but never desperate. Power isn't about domination. It's about direction. Knowing where you're going, why you're going, and how every move brings you closer to the throne. This is what separates the few who rise from the many who remain stuck. Vision. Most people don't have one. They think in weeks, not decades. They chase dopamine, not destiny. And so they live in cycles, repeating the same year over and over and calling it growth. But you must break the cycle. You must develop vision so clear it intimidates people. A vision that governs every action, filters every decision, and eliminates every distraction. And here's the paradox. To gain that kind of vision, you must first embrace stillness. Silence isn't empty. It's where power is born. Every great strategist, Napoleon, Cleopatra, Miyamoto Musashi, they all understood this. Before the conquest comes concentration. Before the strike comes stillness. Power isn't frantic, it's precise. And that precision is built in solitude. Most people avoid solitude because they fear what they'll find in it. They fear their own mind, their own inadequacies, their own wasted time. So they distract, delay, and dilute their potential. But the ones who rise, they sit with it. They face the discomfort. They confront the lies they've told themselves. And in that fire, they forge a new identity. Because to rise above the powerless, you must first burn away the powerless version of yourself. You must let him die. The version of you that needed approval, that feared judgment, that begged for permission to be great. Let him die. You don't need permission. You need conviction. You don't need praise. You need purpose. You don't need more time. You need a strategy. And strategy begins with one question. Who must I become to command this life? Not, what should I do? Not, what will they think? But, who must I become? Because becoming is the game. Not pretending, not performing, becoming. Every day, you are sculpting a version of yourself. And every weak decision, every passive moment, every indulgent excuse, that's a chisel to your destruction. But every act of discipline, every bold move, every ruthless truth you face, that's how you carve the weapon the world will one day fear. You were not born to be soft. You were born to be sharp. To cut through illusion. To pierce through mediocrity. To become a living testament of what power looks like when it's built from the inside out. But you must be willing to walk alone. Not forever, but long enough to prove you can. Because no one follows the uncertain. No one is inspired by the inauthentic. And no one gives power to someone who hasn't earned it in blood and sweat. So ask yourself right now, what am I willing to suffer for? Because power has a price. And most people never pay it. They want the crown, but not the weight. They want influence, but not the sacrifice. They want to be legends, while living like followers. But you, if you're still listening, if your blood is starting to burn, then you're not like them. You feel it, that pull toward more, that refusal to settle, that ache in your soul that says you were made for war. Not comfort. Good, keep that fire. You'll need it, because in the next moments, the path gets narrower, and the climb gets brutal. But so does the transformation. Keep going. Now that you've seen the truth, you can't go back. Comfort will try to seduce you. Your old identity will whisper, you've done enough. But power doesn't care about yesterday's effort. It demands proof today. Understand this. Most people are not held back by the world. They are held back by the agreements they've made with mediocrity. They agreed to stay quiet when they should have spoken. They agreed to stay small when they had a vision that demanded expansion. They agreed to be liked instead of being respected. And respect, real respect, only comes when you make a stand. Not a performance, not a post, a stand, a silent, unshakable stance that says, I am not here to fit in. I am here to take control of my life, and no one will do it for me. That is the beginning of inner sovereignty. And without inner sovereignty, every external victory will collapse. You can make money, gain followers, win awards, but if your self-worth is still rented out to opinions, fear, or childhood wounds, you will always be a slave dressed as a king. So you must become ruthless, not with the world, but with yourself. Cut away every excuse. Dismantle every lie. Challenge every soft belief that tells you to stay in place. Why? Because the throne you seek is surrounded by enemies, most of them internal. Procrastination, doubt, guilt, distraction. These are the assassins that steal your crown in silence. You don't defeat them by inspiration. You defeat them by discipline. The kind of discipline that doesn't flinch when it's tired. The kind that doesn't negotiate with weakness. The kind that builds systems, rituals, routines, not for vanity, but for dominion. Because here's the truth. Power favors the prepared. You do not rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your systems. Ask any master, Whether it's a general, a CEO, a sculptor, or a warrior, their greatness wasn't forged in the spotlight. It was forged in 1,000 invisible decisions. The early mornings, the late nights, the repetition, the reflection, the refusal to settle. And the same is true for you. You do not need more motivation. You need a structure that doesn't allow failure. Remove the need for willpower. Replace it with command. Wake up and own the day before the world makes demands of you. Train your body like it's your armor. Feed your mind like it's your most dangerous weapon. Design your environment like it's your battlefield, because it is. And stop waiting for a perfect time. It doesn't exist. Napoleon didn't wait. He created timing. He moved before he was ready. Because he knew. Hesitation is death. You think you need more time, more knowledge, more validation. You don't. You need to act with intelligent brutality. Strategy is not about waiting. It's about learning how to strike precisely. Which means knowing your enemy, starting with yourself. Because until you master your own patterns, you will keep playing small in the name of staying safe. And let me be clear, safety is an illusion. You are either growing or decaying. There is no neutral. There is no maintain. There is no just coasting. Everything you're not actively building is quietly falling apart. Relationships, mindset, skills, power, they all require daily confrontation with your ego, your comfort, and your old identity. So if you want to rise, you must become the architect of your transformation, not the victim of your circumstances. No more outsourcing responsibility. No more blaming your past, your family, your trauma, your genetics, your schedule. That version of you, the powerless one, he's already dead. Bury him. And now you begin again. But this time, you build differently. You do not build from insecurity. You build from vision. You don't ask, what do I feel like doing? You ask, what would the strongest version of me do right now? Then you do it, no matter how you feel. No matter who's watching. No matter if it's hard. Especially if it's hard. Because the hard path is the path of kings. It's the path of Caesar, who built an empire by breaking convention. Of Queen Elizabeth I, who ruled a nation in a time when women weren't even seen as equals. Of Miyamoto Musashi, who fought over 60 duels without a single loss, not through brute force, but through perfect strategy. You don't have to follow their steps, but you must adopt their spirit. Because rising above the powerless means living by a different code. Their code is emotion. Yours is execution. Their code is envy. Yours is focus. Their code is entitlement. Yours is discipline. And when you live by this code long enough, something begins to shift. You stop chasing attention. You start commanding respect. You stop fearing failure. You start daring to dominate. You stop asking, why me? And start declaring, try me. This is the turning point. The moment when you stop walking with the crowd and start walking toward the throne. But don't expect applause. The masses never cheer for those who choose to rise. Because every step you take toward power reminds them of every step they didn't take. They will call you obsessed, arrogant, cold, different, good. Be all of it. Let your discipline offend their mediocrity. Let your ambition expose their apathy. Let your rise be a reminder that they had the same choice and chose comfort instead. Because you weren't born to be liked. You were born to lead. Not with titles. With presence. Not with noise. With results. And results come to those who don't quit when it gets dark. To those who hold the line when no one's watching. To those who go to war for their potential, every damn day. So if you're tired of being overlooked, if you're done being underestimated, if something inside you is ready to take the throne, then listen to me closely. You are not here to take part. You are here to take over. But no one is going to give you permission. No one is going to hand you power. You either become it, or you stay forgotten. Keep moving. The crown gets closer. You want the crown? Then earn it in silence. Forge it through pain. Protect it with obsession. Because the second you step into your power, the world will try to humble you. Not out of wisdom, but out of fear. They fear what you reveal in them. Your rise illuminates their laziness. Your focus exposes their distraction. Your purpose shames their excuses. But that's not your concern anymore. You didn't come here to soothe the insecure. You came to rise. Understand this. Power is not taken once. It must be taken daily. Through every decision, every habit, every inner war. Most people are not powerless because they lack strength. They are powerless because they refuse to confront themselves. They scroll instead of studying. They react instead of reflecting. They blame instead of building. And the reason they never rise is because they've mistaken movement for mastery. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're advancing. Just because you're exhausted doesn't mean you're evolving. Real power is intentional. It's surgical. It's cold-blooded precision, cutting away everything that doesn't move you forward. This is why you must lead your life like a general leads an army. No wasted energy. No undisciplined emotion. No attachment to comfort. You study the terrain. You position your resources. You understand your weaknesses better than your enemy does. And you move strategically, not emotionally. Because emotion is how they control you. They bait you into outrage, into distraction, into overreaction. But the powerful observe. They do not panic. They position. They know that the one who controls the frame controls the narrative. And the one who controls the narrative wins the war. So take back the narrative of your life. Stop telling the world who you were. Start showing them who you are becoming. Speak less. Move more. Prove it through silence. Let your discipline echo louder than their opinions ever could. Because while they seek validation, you seek domination. This is the game of power. Not flashy, not loud, just ruthless clarity, relentless action, total self-possession. And that's what separates you now. You've stopped asking for direction. You've become the map. You've stopped searching for motivation. You've become the fire. You've stopped looking for saviors. You've become the one worth following. And the more you walk this path, the more you'll see how rare it is. Because truth is rare. Discipline is rare. Self-respect is rare. Most are ruled by emotion. You are ruled by intention. Most are waiting to feel ready. You move before permission is granted. Most flinch when the storm comes. You walk straight into it. Because you understand what they never will. That every obstacle is fuel. Every betrayal is a sharpening stone. Every failure is a furnace for your evolution. You don't crumble. You calcify. You don't retreat. You recode. You don't quit. You reform. And eventually, something unshakable begins to form inside you. You stop fearing failure. Because you've failed so many times and kept building. You stop fearing pain. Because you've lived through it and turned it into power. You stop fearing loss. Because you no longer need anything from anyone. That is true power. Indifference to anything that doesn't serve your mission. No flattery can manipulate you. No insult can destabilize you. No setback can stop you. Because you no longer derive identity from outcomes. You derive it from your standards. And your standards are untouchable. You don't lower the bar to fit in. You raise it to the point where most people fall away. Let them fall. Let them misunderstand. Let them judge. Because the ones who rise are always misjudged at first. Until they win. Then everyone calls it genius. Until they dominate. Then everyone says it was destiny. But you'll know the truth. That it wasn't destiny. It was decision. It was the late nights. The inner wars. The relentless pursuit. It was every time you showed up when no one was watching. Every time you trained while others were partying. Every time you mastered your emotions instead of reacting to them. That's what made you rise. Not luck. Not approval. Not chance. But choice. Over and over again. And now, you move differently. You don't chase people. You attract them, through presence. Not performance. You don't beg for opportunities. You create them, through action. Not affirmation. You don't fear being alone. You master solitude, because it sharpens your mind and strengthens your spirit. That's what most people miss. They're so desperate to be seen. They forget to become someone worth seeing. But not you. You chose the quiet path. The hard path. The path that offers no guarantees, only transformation. And that's why you're rising. Not because the world gave you permission, but because you took the throne before they even noticed you were in the room. And when they finally do, it'll be too late. Because by then, you won't just be different. You'll be untouchable. Power, real power, isn't loud. It doesn't scream, boast, or beg to be recognized. It walks in quietly and changes everything. And that's who you've become. Not a follower, not a talker, but a force. Because you stopped seeking approval and started seeking truth. You stopped trying to impress and started trying to improve. You stopped craving attention and started building influence. Understand this distinction. Attention is cheap. Influence is earned. Anyone can get likes. Only the powerful change lives. And to influence others, you must first influence yourself. Because no one is following your words. They are following your energy, your conviction, your presence, your clarity. And clarity doesn't come from consumption. It comes from confrontation. Confronting the chaos inside. Confronting the lies you've told yourself. Confronting the parts of you that are still afraid. Because fear is the final prison. Not physical walls, not external enemies. Just fear, well disguised. And quietly obeyed. The fear of failing. The fear of being seen. The fear of starting over. The fear of outgrowing those who swore they loved you. But you must face it. All of it. Because on the other side of fear is freedom. You don't conquer fear by thinking. You conquer it by moving through it. Action is the antidote. Strategy is the sword. Relentless belief is the shield. And once you've crossed that line, the line between hesitation and execution, you realize there's no going back. You've burned the boats. You've closed the door. You've made the internal declaration. This is who I am now. Not because you've arrived, but because you've chosen to rise. Again and again, until there is no ceiling. And while most people are still trying to be comfortable, you're becoming dangerous. Not violent. Dangerous to their illusions. Dangerous to their small talk. Dangerous to every system that thrives on your submission. Because when you step into full self-possession, you become uncontrollable. No algorithm defines you. No trend contains you. No failure breaks you. And when they ask how you did it, how you went from being overlooked to undeniable, from silent to sovereign, you won't give them a formula. You'll give them truth. You'll tell them, I stopped lying to myself. I stopped settling for potential. I stopped asking for opportunities, and I became the opportunity. And that's exactly what you are now. Not a seeker of approval. Not a pawn waiting to be moved. You are the strategist of your existence. You play the long game. You know when to strike and when to vanish. You know that power doesn't come to the loudest. It comes to the one who can see the entire board and move with intention. So keep moving. Keep building. Keep sharpening your mind until it cuts through distraction like a blade. The world will try to pull you back. They'll tempt you with comfort, with validation, with watered-down versions of success. But you weren't built for that. You were built for mastery. Not momentary wins. Not applause. Mastery. Of your mind. Of your emotions. Of your craft. Of your fate. Because most people will live and die as spectators. Watching. Commenting. Judging from the sidelines. But you were never meant to watch. You were meant to dominate the arena. Bloodied. Scarred. Relentless. But never broken. Because every time life tried to knock you out, you didn't complain. You adapted. And that's what separates power from potential. Adaptability. The weak resist reality. The powerful reshape themselves to conquer it. The weak wait for perfect timing. The powerful create the moment. The weak crumble under pressure. The powerful turn pressure into clarity. And that is your edge now. You don't need perfect conditions. You create outcomes, regardless of conditions. They call it lucky. You call it strategy. They call it talent. You call it 10,000 invisible hours of war. They call it destiny. You call it discipline. Because you've learned the final truth. Power doesn't reside in the hands of the chosen. It resides in the hands of the relentless. The ones who refuse to be average. The ones who'd rather be hated than forgotten. The ones who'd rather fail in motion than succeed in mediocrity. And now, you are one of them. You've stepped beyond the noise. Beyond the doubt. Beyond the need to be understood. You don't need to be understood. You need to keep rising. Let them wonder. Let them watch. Let them try to catch up. Because you're not just rising above the powerless. You're becoming the embodiment of power itself. And that is irreversible. And now we arrive at the crossroads. The moment that separates the few from the forgotten. Because here's the final truth no one wants to face. Power is a burden. It demands sacrifice. It isolates. It exposes every weakness you pretend doesn't exist. That's why most people stay powerless. They don't want freedom, they want permission. They don't want discipline, they want distraction. They don't want truth, they want comforting lies with pretty packaging. They want the illusion of control, without the cost of self-mastery. But not you. You're here because you're ready to pay the full price. You're here because you've already started. You've seen what's on the other side of mediocrity. The silence, the shame, the quiet desperation in their eyes. You've felt that abyss, and you refused to drown in it. And now, you move with a different force. You no longer flinch when others fold. You no longer pause when others panic. You no longer dilute yourself to make them comfortable. You've earned your edge, and the world feels it. They don't always understand you, but they feel the fire in your presence. They feel the weight of your silence. They feel the depth in your words. Because you've bled for them. You didn't read this in a book. You lived it. You broke and rebuilt yourself, brick by brutal brick. And now, you are becoming unstoppable. Not because you're invincible, but because you've made peace with pain. Because you've trained your mind to stay sharp in chaos. Because you've chosen your purpose over your past, again and again. This is not motivation. This is a rebirth. The shedding of every excuse. Every limitation. Every old identity that once whispered, "You're not ready. You are not who you were. You are not what they said. You are what you repeatedly choose to become." And every day, you get to choose. Power or weakness. Excuses or execution. Resentment or responsibility. Comfort or conquest. No one will make that choice for you. And they shouldn't. Because leaders are forged alone. Understand this. If you keep showing up with clarity, discipline, and focus, you will separate. You'll separate from the noise, the gossip, the mediocrity. You'll separate from the timelines of others. You'll rise so far past them that their opinions no longer orbit your reality. You'll build momentum they can't explain. You'll create results they can't replicate. You'll make moves they never saw coming. Because you stopped playing their game and started mastering your own. And when you look back on this journey, when the rewards start catching up with the sacrifices, you'll realize something most never will. Power was never out there. It was in you, waiting to be claimed, waiting for the moment when your hunger outweighed your fear, when your standards outgrew your circle, when your soul finally said, "I will not die with my potential unspent." And that moment is now. So rise, not to prove them wrong, not to be liked, not to be accepted. Rise because you were built to rule, built to overcome, built to disrupt, redefine, and dominate. No more shrinking. No more apologizing for your intensity. No more asking for permission to become who you already know you are. The throne is yours, if you have the courage to take it. Not with noise, but with silence, strategy, and relentless execution. Because while most people stay powerless, you were never meant to be most people.